Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Next No Retiree. And today I'm celebrating the Declaration of the Independence of the United States. I know it's not 4th of July when you're seeing this. It's going to be some time after. And there's a purpose for this. I thought long and hard about it. And the reason why I'm going to be doing this later than the 4th of July is because the American colonists did not know about their Declaration of Independence. They were already at war. They knew that. There was a conflict going on. But the declaration of actually separating from England and what they were actually fighting for at this point didn't occur until July 4th, but it didn't get out to the American people, the colonists, let's say the colonists, until July 6th in Philadelphia. But that meant, because everything was hand in a press, hand lettered in little metal letters, and then it went through a printing press. And if you want to see one, look up the Waltons on, I don't know where, just look up an episode of the Waltons about the printing press. It'll give you an idea of what things were like. Even when I was born, printers for newspapers, it was typeset, hand set, not like what we do now, okay? But back then it took really a long time, and it took very long time for things to, go by Pony Express or whatever. I don't think it was even Pony Express, but by people on horses couriers that would go to the next town. So it would have taken a long time for everybody to know about the Declaration of Independence. So I'm going to read this as best I can. The words even though I was a reading specialist, I am reading without my glasses today. And also, there's some $1 million words in here. And so as I'm going through, I will stumble and I will self-correct a little bit. But, and I'm having today a little bit of trouble with usurpation or something like that, I think is the word, because it's not a word that I use a lot. I don't usurp anything. I'm not a queen. So anyway, so this says, in Congress, July 4th, 1776. The unanimous declaration of 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are unsufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when in a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. All have directed object establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to candid world. He refuses to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assessment should be obtained, when to suspend he has utterly neglected to attend them. He refused to pass over laws for accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies to places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the despotry of their public records, for sole purpose of fatiguing them to compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with many firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercises, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for the purpose of obstructing the law's naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising to the conditions of their new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administrations of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges depend on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies with the consent of our legislators. He has effected to render the military independent of the superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretend legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. For abolishing the system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing them therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for inducing the same absolute rule to these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures, and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled to the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and he has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of operations, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have answered only by repeated jury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be ruler of free people. Nor have we been wanting in intention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them to be circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred or disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt the connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and our consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war and in peace friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies and the right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and are all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have a full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all acts and things which independent states may have the right to do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. The signatures were Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walton, William Hopper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lunch Jr., Arthur Middleton, John Hancock, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll of Coalition, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harris, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morrison, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkins, John Hart, Abraham Clark, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert T. Payne, Elbridge Gerry, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wolcott, Matthew Thornton. I did stumble over a couple of words, and I apologize, and I'm sorry about my daughter's cat being here right now. It's a very serious actual video here. The this came from a book on the Constitution. My country has been experiencing probably one of the most difficult years that I can remember in my lifetime. And maybe even decade in my lifetime, I would like to say, because, and maybe it's just the age that I am, that I know people that are not happy and people that aren't happy. And some of the wording in here, particularly those that refer to Native Americans, I probably would like to go through many parts of this and talk about it at some time, and I may do that. Because I think you have to understand the American history of the times and the culture of the times, and the beliefs of the times of, for example, Native Americans too. So there may have been some bias in some of this. Another thing is that some of these things, those of us that live here may relate to with how our government has become over time. And you know, I think that the answer, we've gone through other tough times, like my ancestors on my mother's side came from Germany because Germany had been unified, and there was a lot of problems in the areas of Germany that were unified. This was in the 1870s, I believe it was. And there was a lot of unrest in the 1840s and 1870s, and I have both waves. I have ancestors that came to the United States, and my ancestors that came in the 1840s, my great-great-grandfather, actually great-great-great-grandfather, I think it's 3 greats. No, I was right. Great-great-grandfather. I had to think about it for a minute. He fought in the American Civil War for the Union and the preservation of the Union. So that was probably the very most difficult time. And we've had some times in between, and right now could be one of them. But I don't think it's going to get that bad, because we do have this thing called the Constitution. And it is, if it's followed correctly, this is what has preserved us for 250 years. Because it's a living, breathing document that can be amended to go with the times. And I'm going to go through some of this. Now, some of you may know that I was an elementary teacher, certified K through 8 and, well, K through 12 in reading at the end of my career. And 1 through 8, excuse me, at the beginning. My elementary certification classroom as a classroom teacher was 1 through 8 in all subject areas. But in reading, I am certified K-12. There was one word there, a couple words that I have to go back, and I apologize that in doing a dry read, I did not look them up. I did stumble over a couple of words because they're not words that I personally use very much, and nor do I really see in print very often. So I wasn't as fluent as I'd like to be. But anyway, I do want to go through both the Declaration of Independence and give some of my opinions and insights and historical context, as I am studying American history now on my own in my retirement, because that's what my mind wants to do. And I want to do that for my personal writing, my novel writing. And but my very first order of business is to work on a children's book that I finally found and get that published and out there. But then I'm going to be working on the novel I'm working on, which is in the series, and then go back to the American Revolutionary novel. So it's all kind of very pertinent to the colonial period and so on that I'm studying and working on. Anyway, so I hope you got something out of me reading the Declaration of Independence, and I it's kind of my way of celebrating this 250th anniversary of my country, of which I'm very proud of, and I love dearly. So, until next time, I needed to get a little more comfortable seating because I filmed another video prior to doing this one. But anyway, until next time, bye for now. God bless, and see you soon.